Do you feel like other men cannot relate to your problems, your struggles, or your issues that you're dealing with? Or that they just don't understand the struggles you're going through on a day to day basis? Well, in this episode, I'm going to share with you an interview with a gentleman who was facing a near divorce when God stepped in and radically changed his life and his marriage. And through that situation is now hosting men's events that help men recharge, some that are coming to Christ in salvation. Others are overcoming addictions of drugs, alcohol, and pornography. And you will hear that on episode 18 of the 318 Project.
This is the 318 Project, a guide to equip men through godly principles and develop as husbands, fathers, and sons. And now, your host, Ryan Hare.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the 318 Project. And on this episode, I have with me a special guest, Bett Harvey, with the Men's Encounter North. And he's going to discuss a little bit with that. But first, let's welcome him. Hi, Bett. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing great. So for everybody that's listening, if you can you give me a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Bett Harvey. Man, there's a lot to tell, but I'll start just for now. I have a regular 9 to 5 job, and but on the side, I spend another 40 hours a week doing ministry. And God has given me a passion to have Men's Encounter North, which is a men's ministry to lead men to know what God has designed them to do. And so that's my passion, and that's where I spend most of my time doing. And I'm over in the actually Point, Texas, but our Men's Encounter is out of Royce City, over by Rockwall.
Okay. So as far as with all that, you're married and have kids?
Sure, married, 33 years of marriage. I have 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. One is 5, and the other one is 2. And
Okay.
I'll tell you what, if you don't have grandkids yet, it's a blessing. It is a blessing.
Nope, still got a few years for that one. I'm hoping not anytime soon. So I got to meet Bett a couple years ago at, again, one of the men's conferences that we go to every year, CMN. And he had, just hearing him and what he was promoting. He was promoting the Men's Encounter and with a booth and everything. And so just kind of got to meet him and hear all that he was doing with it, and kind of got to hear a little bit of his testimony. And that's kind of why I've invited him to share his testimony. So, Bett, can you tell me a little bit about, kind of give us your testimony and how you came about starting Men's Encounter?
Sure. So, me and my wife went on a long journey. It started here in the Dallas area and took us to Virginia and to Houston and back here. We were married 26 years, and twice within that 26 years, my wife had asked me to lead the family. And I didn't know what she meant. I just knew that I was leading. I thought I was doing what a man was supposed to do, and I had a job and supplied a house, vehicle, groceries, electricity, and so I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it wasn't what she was wanting from me. And so after a couple of times, she wrote me letters asking me to lead. After 26 years of marriage, it was we were in Houston. And we were on the brink of divorce. She had told me that she fell out of love with me, that the sight of me, the touch of holding my hand made her sick to her stomach. And so she was just fed up and just ready to get out of the marriage. So we were in Houston, and some other things happened, and I won't get all the detail about it. But there was points that we were in really dark places. And so one Wednesday, she decided to to go to church. She heard God tell her to come find Him. And so that Wednesday night, on my way home from work, she basically passed me on the highway and was going to church, and I didn't know it. And so she gets home, and I asked her where she'd been, and she said, I went to church. And like a real man, a real leader of the house, the first thing I asked her was, "Can I go with you next time?" So, and at this point, I mean, I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't even a believer. And this, like I said, about 5 or 6 years ago, I did not believe in God and really didn't care anything about it. But I knew that our marriage was in jeopardy, and I loved my wife to death, and I didn't want to lose her. And so my male brain figured, well, the only way I can keep her is to do what she's really inside wanting me to do. So I started going to church with her. And as I went to church, I started. Actually, the first time I went to church, everybody stand up, raise their hand during praise and worship, and I thought I was around a lot of crazy people. But I kept going because I knew that this is what I was supposed to do to convince her to fall in love with me. And so I heard about a men's class called Maximize Manhood, and this is really the turning point, I think, in our marriage and in my relationship with Christ, because at this point I still was not a believer. But I knew if I told her I was going to a man's class, this would convince her that I really cared about all this stuff. And so I remember going to that man's class and talking to the leader and him telling me that there's books involved and I've got to read. And I've never read a book in my life. But I was like, well, I could probably wing this. So there's a book and a workbook. I go home that night, and my wife says, well, what was the class about? And I said, well, it's called Maximize Manhood. I said, and there's 9 books, and it takes a year to take the class. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah. And I'm sure she thought the whole time, there's no way he's going to finish this. And so I put the book down, didn't care anything about it. I figured that next week I'd had to have my lesson done, so I just kind of skimmed through the book and find the answers and go to class. About 4 or 5 days later, I get home from work, and I know it's time I got to get that work done for the class coming up, and so I couldn't find my book. So I'm walking around the house and couldn't find it, and asked my wife. I said, hey, you know where that book is for that man's class? She goes, oh, yeah, I know where it's at. It's over on the side table by the bed. And I asked her, so, well, what was it doing over there? She goes, well, I picked it up and read it. I was like, you read that book? And she goes, yes. And she said, not only did I read it, I read the whole thing in one day. I want to take the class.
Wow.
I told her there's no way you take the class. It's a man's class. And she said, well, ask your leader if I can take it. So, it was funny because, God has a plan, and his plan was he was going to somehow or another get me to take this class and read these books. So the following class, I walked to my leader, Bruce, at Lakewood, and I asked him, I said, Bruce, I said, can my wife take this class? And he goes, well, sure she can. I looked at him, I said, you're kidding, right? He said, no, I'm not. He said, there's a couple of the women that won't take it too. He said, they're going to do it off campus. She can join them. So I knew that this meant that she was going to start learning what I was supposed to be, what God had designed me to be. And so I had to read the books. And so I started reading the books, and I started feeling changes inside. I started feeling my heart get softened, and started feeling a wanting to learn more and to soak up all of this. And so I was driving home from work, and I'd walk in the door and just start crying. And my wife asked me, why are you crying for? And I told her, I don't know why I'm crying. But of course, now I do. I know it's God changing my heart and softening my heart. And so about 6 months into this class, I was invited to go to a men's encounter. And first time they asked me, I said no, I had no interest in going. And so multiple times they asked me, and I kept saying no. And then finally, the guys in the class said, we're all going, you should go with us. And so I said, okay, I'll go. I think at this time that our marriage was on it was starting to turn around, but we still had a long ways to go. I still had a lot to learn. After being married 26 years and not leading my family, never praying for my family, never praying for my wife, I've never, wanting to take my kids to church or anything. I had a lot to still learn. And so I went to that men's encounter, and Ryan, I can't explain it. I walked out. I went on a Friday and walked out Saturday, different person. Um, I walked home that day, walked in the door, and I was changed. And so it was such a passion on my heart. I started going back to the encounters every 4 months and help be on the sport team. And as I was learning, going through these lessons and being part of this encounter, I started realizing things that in the past that I did wrong. Bringing pornography into the house. Like I said a while ago, not praying my family, not leading my family spiritually, never saying a father's prayer over his daughters. I didn't know any of that stuff. But I kept just going to these encounters as part of the support team and just soaking it all in. And then my daughter was back home here in the Dallas area, and she's getting ready to have her first grandbaby. Now we were in Houston at this time, and we were torn on what to do. We found our church home. We were very happy there. We were leaders in the church, had a lot of friends, and I just remember we were torn whether we should come here back home or stay in Houston. And so we met with a couple, one of the marriage leaders in the church, and we knew him pretty well, met with them and just kind of asked their opinion. And I just remember Richard Bright, the husband, looking at me and going, God's telling me that you need to go back. We don't want to lose you, but you need to go back home. And I think back, if it wasn't for him giving us that advice, a lot of this would not be going on right now that's happening now with this ministry. So we moved back here, and I kept going back to Houston to help with the encounters there. And I remember the last one I went to in Houston, she had met me up there. My wife had met me up in Houston on that Saturday, and we went to church together on Sunday, and we were driving home together. And I remember looking over at her and saying, I think we're supposed to have our own encounter back home. And she kind of looked at me with a stunned face and said, what'd you say? And I said, yeah. I said, I think we're supposed to have our own encounter. And I remember at this time, I had really been a Christian for maybe 2 years. And she said, do you know how to do it? I was like, I have no clue, but we'll figure it out. 6 months later, we had our first men's encounter. I had over 175 men there. And Ryan, it's just been, God has just blessed us with this ministry, and we're coming up in February on our 10th one. And we just last weekend did our 9th one and had 160 men there during this pandemic we have.
That's great. That's great. So going back with that, and like I said, I can relate with the Dr. Cole majoring in men's curriculum and how it impacts lives, especially for men, and the talk is it's not just for men, but it's to women as well, because we see how when the men get involved, how it affects the wife and draws that marriage closer, if they're both willing to work at it. And again, for me, and like you've said, we see how that those books and that material is so impactful. Like you said, you don't even know it, but it just speaks to you. And that's more the Holy Spirit and God just really pouring into your life, showing you those things to work on in your life. Besides those books, who was kind of that major influence or mentor to you during that time that was really helping you, guiding you with those books, not just with the books, but just helping you grow spiritually?
I think it was a combination of a few. There was this maximized class I was in. We were broke up into groups because it was a large class, and there was about 7 men in that class, and they had all been Christians for a long time, and they're their walk with the Lord was good, and here I am walking in as a non-Christian, and I think the relationship that was built with those 7 men in that maximized class um, is what did it for me. It was bouncing stuff off of them, and I ask them questions that now I'm thinking, my goodness, I really asked that question. But ask that question, and none of them looking at me or judging me. They loved on me. Um, they loved on me and just told me the answers, and they did everything they could to guide me. I mean, they pushed me to go to that first encounter, which is the main impact I think that on me. But I remember there was one guy. His name was Charles Price, and I first started going to that class, and he'd always walk up to me and give me just a hug and kiss me on the cheek. Now you got to remember, I wasn't a Christian at this time, so I'm like, why is this guy kissing me on the cheek? And I asked somebody else in the class. I said, hey, that guy, he always kisses me on the cheek. Why is that? And he told me, he said, that's the love of God coming through him to you. He loves you that much, and he's showing you the love of Christ. And after that, I understood it, and now I look forward to seeing him and getting that kiss on the cheek from him. And I think those men in that room, in that group, that really spoke to me and helped guide me through this process of being a non-believer to being all in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's always that weird feeling of, a guy kind of giving that peck on a cheek or whatever, in a sense of, but I had a mentor of mine. I have a mentor of mine that's one of his things is, it says in the scripture that, greet each other with a brotherly kiss in a sense. So it's that embracing, that hug, and just that camaraderie. It's nothing, sexual or very vulgar in a sense, but it's just showing, like you said, it's the love of God shining through that person and expressing how much they care for you. So again, great to hear how you had that support of those brothers. Kind of, and basically it was an accountability, like you were saying. It's just that they were holding you to a standard. But like you said, they were that being open and allowing you to share where, open up and share how a lot of guys, we don't want to open up and share.
And Ryan, and what's crazy about the whole thing is these guys, like I said, here I am in this class, not even a Christian at the time, just trying to convince my wife that I cared about all this stuff, and then growing through that year of that class. And now those men that were mentoring me in that Maximized Manhood class are coming to the Men's Encounter North, and just amazed what God has done in just a few years. Because they'll come up to me and go, I remember when you came to class and you didn't believe in God. Now look what's going on. And so it's just amazing. Right. Once you put God in the center of everything, what he can do for you.
Right. Oh, yes. Like I said, it's you don't know the path that God opens and leads you until you kind of get to that point and you start seeing how God is using you. And again, just those circumstances. So you have started a men's encounter in the Dallas area, and it's called Men's Encounter North.
Yes.
So you abbreviate it's MEN for men.
Right.
So, and again, so we see that it kind of, you've taken that and brought it from the church you were at in Houston, and you've kind of brought it to the Dallas area as well.
We've done some changes. Yeah, it's not. It is similar to what they do, but we've added our own unique parts to it. And so it's. But it was so passionate when I went there because what I went through, I didn't want the men to go through that. I went through it 43 years of my life, not knowing what a real man was. Right. And so I felt just in my heart God say, help other men. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go right ahead.
No, that's great. That's what I want to hear. So again, now what is that mission of Men's Encounter? What is the again, I know we're trying to build men, but with that, what is kind of that mission statement that you have for Men's Encounter?
Well, our mission statement is find freedom, find God, find your true north. It's basically, I've had men tell me it's more of a freedom ministry to where you have men come in that are broken, that are anywhere from addicted to drugs, alcoholism, pornography, anger, fear. It's we've had men come in, actually come in on drugs, and then 24 hours later they're sober and ready um, to follow God, and so it's a ministry that is set men free from any bondage they have. Now, having said that, we have a lot of men that come that are pastors, that are leaders, and they just want to come kind of get rejuvenated and refired back up. And so it's a little bit, it's for any man, but it's it's one of those things that when I go talk to men about it, I go to churches and I speak about it. It's one of those things that the words that come out of my mouth cannot explain what happened there. There's no way to explain it. You just have to kind of
Right.
experience it. And Ryan, I know you were there and you experienced it. And it's just one of those things you just can't explain to men what happens there. But I tell every man that comes that if you're not satisfied on Saturday afternoon when you leave, I'll give you money back to you. I'll give you money back guarantee. And so far, we have over 1,000 men come through, and I've yet to give him his money back.
Wow, that's great. And again, it's not because of man and you trying to make it hyped or build it up in a just to make the numbers, but you're
No.
allowing God to minister to those men, like you said, for whatever need. If it's just a time of renewing strength, refreshing, like you said, or bringing that deliverance and healing to somebody that is bound by an addiction. Or just, that's not even saved, and just, allowing the Holy Spirit and God to change their life, whether it's a simple growth or a radical overhaul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we definitely let the Holy Spirit lead it. We definitely are obedient. If I feel God tells us to do something or change something, we do it. It's the Holy Spirit led. I've had men tell me that when they pull up in the parking lot, the day of the encounter, they feel God all over the place, and we're there to show the love of Christ to every man that shows up.
That's great. Now with that, and again, I know how the impact of the Dr. Cole books had on your life. Do y'all incorporate doing the curriculum with the encounter, or is that kind of maybe a separate, with a church, or do you encourage guys to even go through the curriculum?
No, so actually, what we do is we understand that men come to the encounter and then come, Saturday afternoon, Sunday, they're back in the real world, and they go back to work on Monday, and then life slaps them in the face, and that excitement, that energy boost they got for God sometimes burns out again. And so you want to keep men plugged in. You want to keep something going on in their lives, not just church on Sundays, but you want something that's going to impact them all through the week. So we do encourage Maximize Manhood. We actually have a sign up list in the lobby for Maximize Manhood. I promote it. Most of the speakers promote it. And we have other classes we promote also, but we highly promote Maximize Manhood. In fact, we always start a new Maximize Manhood after every encounter. We have somebody sign up for it. In fact, we're starting a brand new one up tomorrow night from the encounter we just had. And we've got anywhere from 8 to 10 men that are going to be in it. And then we have men that register that want to be a part of Maximize Manhood, but in different areas of Dallas, Fort Worth. And we try to plug them into churches that are doing it closest to them. So yes, Maximize Manhood is very important. That way those men can get plugged in, and not only for the 9 books they go through, but also for that fellowship, like-minded
Right. Oh,
men.
definitely. Yeah. Goes back to the iron sharpening iron.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So with that, as you're doing, like you said, you do these encounters. Now, how often do you do them?
We try doing them about once every 4 months, so about
Every
3 a
4
year.
months. Okay, that's cool. So with these recent ones, especially with this year, with everything that's kind of been going on with the current crisis, and how has that affected some of the recent events that y'all have been hosting?
Well, so the one we had in May, that was when that we couldn't have a gathering, because restrictions. And so we had a board meeting, and we decided to go live stream. So we actually we did it live stream, and it was wonderful, wonderful. We had over 13,000 views during the live stream event. So
Wow.
then we got ready for the one we just had last weekend, and it was, I was a little not nervous, but just, I guess, worried that, because of COVID, everything's going on, we wouldn't have a lot of men register for it. Men still being careful about what's going on, but you know what, man, God is so faithful. Men were ready to get out of the house and start hearing about God again, and start, being around other like-minded men. And so we had a complete full house. We had every table um, full of men. I think at the end of the day, we had about 155 to 160 men at the event. So to say it impacted, I'd have to say no, it didn't impact Men's Encounter North one bit. In fact, it made us stronger.
That's great. That's great. And again, kind of with what we're seeing that has been taking place, has there been more of an outreach for guys that are looking for things like this, looking for that help to, be a better man, be a better father, be a better husband? Have you seen more engagement, again, with what we see in society today, the tearing down of man and the masculinity, and just, again, with everything being situated of the trying to think of just being quarantined, not so much quarantined, but just being isolated, where we see so much things that are taking place with depression and other things like that? Have you seen that increase? But have you seen men looking for help more?
Um, I think with kind of like what you said, even though we don't want to call it quarantine, but for men that are kind of restricted what they can do and be inside their homes, and yes, depression does set in, and you have men wanting more. And I saw when we first opened registration up, we had more men register within a few week period than we ever had before. Usually, when we're about a month and a half out, we might have 5 or 6 men registered, because men wait to the last minute to register. But we had over 30 men register within the first. We were 4.5 weeks out. We had about 35 men registered, and that's never happened before. And so I think it was men wanting something, wanting to get out, wanting to experience, God, and just be set free, and just get out and be around other men. That's if I would say any difference I saw in this one, it was just the registration happened a lot sooner than it ever has before. And going to different churches and doing the men's breakfasts and talk about the men's encounter, we had such good responses, because men are they would tell us, we're ready to get out. We got to get out of our houses. We're ready to be around other like-minded men. We're ready to do more than we've been doing. We've been stuck inside our house since March. And so yes, I think there was an increase in it because of what's been going on.
Okay. Yeah. Again, like you said, we see how some of it, where people are wanting to, at that point now, they're ready to get out and do a little bit more and have that fellowship. So, but that's great to see how you had such a draw for guys that like I said, wanted to get out and just be with other men, that brotherhood, that camaraderie. And again, with all that. So you've got some events, like you said, you're doing them every 4 months. So what do you have in store for Men's Encounter here in the next month, or not so much month, but for the next year coming up? I know you have a big annual event, I think that's coming up next May.
Well, so our next Men's Encounter North is February 19th and 20th. And that will be a normal Men's Encounter. It'll be at Sabine Creek Ranch in Roy City. We have a tremendous lineup of speakers already, and we're not done yet. We have a couple of professional football players come in to speak, and a couple of pastors coming in, and then some of the normal speakers that we have. But in May, we're doing our very first Men's Encounter North conference. This is the first time we've done this, and the reason we waited was because we want to get 10 Men's Encounter North underneath our belts. So February would be our 10th one, and then in May we're going to do our conference. And the conference is going to be at Gospel for Asia in Wills Point. We're getting to use their facility, and what we're praying for is 650 men to come to this conference with about 35 speakers. Dr. Paul Cole of Maximize Manhood will be there, other speakers, and our keynote speaker will be Stephen Baldwin.
Wow.
He'll be speaking on Saturday.
Well, that's great, because again, we've kind of seen some where he's been outspoken about some of his faith. So that's going to be kind of an interesting having Stephen Baldwin as as you said, your keynote speaker for that conference. And what dates are that in May?
That is going to be May 14th and 15th. And you can get to the information on it by men'sencounternorth.com.
Men's Encounter. So that's men'sencounternorth.com.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be. We're going to serve food. It's going to be a 2-day event. It's going to be different than Encounter. We're not doing the exact same things to do the Men's Encounter, but we're just going to have just a tremendous lineup of powerful speakers that's going to speak live from these men. And we've got a lot of moving pieces, and it's going to be it's going to be a great time. I can't wait.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds very interesting. And for the guys, I mean, they're going to, if they go to the website to see that, to register, but just in case they don't, what is the registration fee, or how much is it going to be for that event?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that they can register. So there's a general admission, which is just general seating, and then there is going to be like a VIP seating. So general admission, I'm trying to pull it up right now so I can make sure I tell right, because we just got this all set up. So regular reserve seating will be $80, and then if you want to add a meal to it, it moves up to $91. If you want 2 meals, it's $102. Now, if you don't want any meals, you're more welcome to. There's plenty of restaurants in the area you can go to and eat there, or you can eat with us. Then general admission is $50, and then 1 meal is $61. And if you want 2 meals, it's $72. And reserve seating is going to be about the first 5 rows next to the stage. And we're going to have 2 different stages. There's going to be an outside stage and an inside stage, and then some breakout rooms also.
Wow. Okay. Yep. Definitely be encouraging anybody that's listening to definitely check that out, and hopefully make that trip out to out there to Texas in that area to be able to hopefully come to that and that Men's Encounter, that conference, again with 35 different speakers. Like I said, Stephen Baldwin, of course, Paul Cole, a great friend of ours. So, and just knowing how that impacted, and again, all this, that just seeing what this ministry has done in just a short, as you said, 5 or 6 years of seeing how God is really has moved in your life and restored your marriage, and just how God is just using you to reach other men. So again, just a powerful testimony of what God has done in your life, Bett.
Well, thank you. And one little story I want to tell, and because sometimes I sit back and I just wonder, man, 3 years of doing Men's Encounter is grown to what it is now. It has to be God. I couldn't do it on my own. And then he always does something to reassure us. So I call this the bean story. For the first 6 encounters, we always served fajitas and refried beans. After the 6th encounter, our chef came up to us, and we had dinner with him one night, and he said, "Hey, I would like to change the lunch on Saturday," and I don't like changes. And I said, "So what do you want to change?" And he said, "Well, let's get away from refried beans. Let's do charro beans." And I said, what are charro beans? And he said, well, they're beans with a lot of spices and some bacon in it. He said, I think the men would like it. He said, it'd be different than refried. And we've done refried for 6 encounters. And I think we should change it up a little bit. And I said, okay. I said, give me some prices. Let me know what it's going to run. And we'll go from there. So the very next night, me and my wife were actually driving home from a Maximize Manhood class. And my phone rings, and it's a good friend of mine over in Fort Worth. And he says, I was just talking to a pastor friend of mine, and he wants to donate 750 pounds of charro beans to Men's Encounter North. I said, are you kidding me?
Wow.
He goes, no, I'm not kidding you. He said, why? And so I told him what happened, and he was just as stunned as I was. So the very next day, me and a good friend of mine went over to Fort Worth and picked up 750 pounds of charro beans. And that's just how faithful God is. He even takes care of the little details like that. Never in 6 encounters have we ever even thought about charro beans. The day after he mentions it, we have 750 pounds donated to us. So that when that happens, I just know God's in control.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like you said, it's those little things that we tend to take for granted or not even expecting. And God just, shows up and just, astonishes us so many times. But that's been great. So with that, as we're closing, I just want to say, Bett, it's been an honor to have you on here and just again to hear your testimony and hear how you share it and what God has done in your life with your marriage, and now that you're reaching and blessing other men. So with that, and you said that they can find you on your website at men'sencounter.com and men'sencounternorth.com. And is there anywhere they can get you, find you on any social media pages or sites?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page and then a Facebook group. Both of them are Men's Encounter North.
Okay.
So you can find us on Men's Encounter North Facebook page and also in our group. And we also have a YouTube channel. We do live stream on our encounters, and we put the speakers up there. We also have promo videos and a few other different videos. So just go to YouTube and search for Men's Encounter North, and you'll find us.
That's great. And I will include those links in the show notes so that they can, just click on them and go directly to those sites as well. So Bett, I just want to thank you again for joining me on the 318 Project. And I hope that you have a blessed and wonderful day and that God continues to flourish in your life and in your marriage and in Men's Encounter.
Well, Ryan, thank you for having me. It was an honor for you to invite me to do this, and just thank you for everything you do, and blessings towards you also.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bett Harvey of Men's Encounter North. I mean, what a powerful testimony to see what God did in his marriage and in his life, and how he, just from trying to restore his marriage and be the leader in his home, God just poured into him through that encounter at his church there at Lakewood Church, that then he took it and has expanded it to another region, and how it is impacting lives, and what's coming up soon next year with his first time men's conference. The men that he's got coming as guest speakers is so wow. But I want to thank you for joining me today on the 318 Project. And remember, if you have any thoughts or comments or suggestions, you can contact me and leave a brief message at speakpipe.com/the 318 Project. And again, Bett's website, just as a reminder, was men'sencounternorth.com. And you can check that out for future events if you're in that Dallas, Fort Worth general area, or if you just want to go and check it out and see what events they do have coming up. And like I said, if you can take time to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with other men. And if you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcast, I would really love it and appreciate it if you would take the time to just go in and leave a review. It may not be nothing much, but it does help with the algorithms with Apple and just being able to promote this podcast through iTunes and their Apple Podcast site to maybe reach other men as well. And again, guys, I want you to have a blessed and wonderful day.
Thank you for joining on this adventure of integrity and honor in godly masculinity. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with other men. And remember to keep building faithful men.